Okay, so today we're diving into a saga that is just unbelievable. It's a story of how a single software bug, and the powerful people who chose to cover it up, completely ruined thousands of innocent lives across the United Kingdom. This has been called the biggest miscarriage of justice in British history. Let's get into how this all went so horribly wrong.
I mean, really, just think about that for a second. Imagine your friends, your family, your whole community turning against you because a trusted, official institution has branded you a thief. This wasn't just some thought experiment for thousands of people. This was their actual, devastating reality.
So that number? That's how many people were prosecuted by the post office itself between 1995 and 2015. Over 700 lives were completely turned upside down, all based on data that was just flat out wrong. And get this, that doesn't even count the hundreds, maybe thousands more who were accused and forced to pay back money they never, ever stole.
So who were these people? Well, they were sub-postmasters. And you gotta understand, these weren't just employees. They were basically small business owners who invested their own life savings to run the local post office. They were pillars of their communities, trusted and respected.
For every single one of them, it started the same way. A simple discrepancy. The computer would just say money was missing, but they knew it wasn't true. And then suddenly their business partner, the post office, became their prosecutor. People remortgaged their homes, drained their life savings, and had their reputations destroyed. People went to prison. And just tragically, we know at least 4 people took their own lives over this.
Right, so how in the world could something like this happen on such a massive scale? Well, the answer, believe it or not, lies in a piece of software, a single bug in the machine that became this engine for injustice.
And here it is, the culprit, the Horizon IT system. It was built by a company called ICL, which was later bought by Fujitsu, and it was supposed to bring the post office into the 21st century. You know, on paper, it sounded like a great idea. But in reality, it was an absolute disaster from the moment it launched.
I mean, just look at the sheer blatant denial here. Every time a sub-postmaster called in, frantic, saying there was a shortfall, the post office's response was the same, chillingly consistent line. The system is robust. The system is perfect. They insisted it had to be a mistake by the sub-postmaster, or worse, theft. But the reality was that the system had coding errors that could literally just invent financial black holes out of thin air.
But, you know, this wasn't just a technical glitch. That's what makes this so much worse. The real scandal, the part that is just so infuriating, was the deliberate, systemic cover-up that followed. It was a complete culture of denial.
And this quote, this right here, tells you exactly how early they knew there was a problem. It's from a report written by a Fujitsu developer. That was in 1998, before the system was even rolled out nationwide. They knew the code was fundamentally broken from the very start.
So that same developer, David McDonald, he called the team that built Horizon the Wild West. Just think about that for a second. The software that was responsible for managing millions of pounds of public money was built with no standards, no discipline. It was a complete mess.
And it gets worse. When McDonald actually came up with a practical plan to fix the code, he was basically just dismissed. His analogy for what they did instead is just perfect. They knew the boat was sinking, but instead of plugging the hole, they just painted a line on the outside to watch how fast it went down.
So you have to ask why. Why on earth would they hide all this? Well, because internal warnings got buried, because they lied point blank to courts and to Parliament. Whistleblowers who knew the truth that Fujitsu could remotely access and alter records were threatened into silence. And ultimately it all came down to this. The post office's reputation and those huge government contracts with Fujitsu were just seen as more important than the lives of hundreds of innocent people.
But a lie that big can't stay buried forever. And it didn't, thanks to the just incredible resilience of the people who refused to be silenced. Their fight for the truth would take them 2 decades.
And at the heart of that fight is this man, Alan Bates. See, after the post office wrongly accused him and took away his livelihood, he didn't just walk away, he fought. For nearly 20 years, he fought. He started an alliance, brought hundreds of victims together, and did the impossible. He took the post office to court. And in 2019, after this monumental battle, he won. The High Court finally declared that the Horizon system was unreliable. And then, just recently, the whole thing exploded back into the public consciousness, all thanks to a powerful TV drama. That show created such a firestorm of public outrage across the UK that it literally forced the government's hand, pushing them to finally pass new laws to clear the names of the victims. But even with that incredible victory,
This story is far, far from over. Because for hundreds of victims, this is a story of justice delayed, and for far too many, justice that feels completely denied.
I mean, just take a look at this devastating contrast. On one side, you've got Paula Venables, the CEO of the post office during the worst of it. She eventually resigned, walking away with a hefty severance package. And on the other side, you have people like Seema Myra, a sub-postmaster who was sent to jail for theft while 8 weeks pregnant, based on nothing more than Horizon's phantom numbers.
Now, Seema Myra's conviction was eventually overturned in 2021, but how do you undo that kind of damage? You can't. When she was asked about the post office's apology, her words just cut right to the bone. It just underscores a pain that no amount of money, no apology, can ever truly fix. The human cost here is just immeasurable.
And this, right here, is the really infuriating part. To this day, not one single senior post office executive has faced criminal charges. Fujitsu, the company that built the broken software and knew about it, has pretty much walked away with no real consequences. There's just a complete lack of accountability at the top.
So the UK government has set up compensation schemes, and as of now, over £289 million have been paid out to more than 2,800 victims.
But even with that huge number, the whole process has been just painfully slow. For thousands of victims and their families, the fight for full and fair compensation is still going on. Their ordeal is absolutely not over.
And listen, this isn't just me being dramatic. The UK's own former Prime Minister called it exactly what it is. One of the greatest miscarriages of justice in the nation's history, a catastrophic failure at every single level.
So it leaves us all with this final, really heavy question. When a system, an institution with that much power, fails this catastrophically, when it protects itself by ruining the lives of innocent people on an industrial scale, what does real justice even look like? At what point is a simple apology just not enough?